Hello everybody and welcome back to my journey to Jool. It's been way too long since I put up another episode of this series. So we are almost finished with the moons of Jool. We're now in the orbit of Bob and of course Bob, because who else could explore Bob better than Bob? Is doing some experiments and collecting the science data. Yeah, as you've seen before in my other episodes, we collect the science from high orbit, then we collect them from low orbit, then we get down to the surface, try not to crash, and then get back up into orbit and rendezvous with our beautiful little rocket here, the Joolishka. And coming up on that dirty little nugget called Bob, which reminds me of some oblong chocolate thingy. And if you remember my previous episode, I said something along the lines like, I don't like chocolate, and it's true, I don't like chocolate. Actually, I really don't like chocolate, so much so that when I was a kid and somebody offered me chocolate, I told them, ugh, it's dirty. But enough about me, let's get on with it and let's do some more science, because that's what Kerbals do. I think they don't have any other hobbies than collect science from strange devices they attach to their spacecraft. We're here in a retrograde polar orbit, which is, well, highly inefficient to say the least, but honestly, since it was so difficult to get an encounter with Bob, I really did not care at this point anymore and was just happy to be here and was very eager to get away from it. So we just lower our periaps a little bit more so the lander can make his descent more easily, then getting to periaps and readying the lander to get out and about. But first we have to do the low orbit science, because if you may have noticed before, even though we were well, quite low, it was not low enough to do the near orbit experiment, and it's still not low enough, so we have to lower our periaps even lower. If I would not be afraid so much of the record companies taking down my videos for some sound effects, I would put some rap song, get low, or something like that in the background now. But unfortunately, since they already took down one or two of my videos where I did some soundtrack from, I think, Warner Brothers copyrighted music or something like that, I don't really want to risk losing my creations again. And we finally can make our experiments because we're low enough. So here we go, collecting science. Of course, Bob doing his duty around Bob. No, I never get tired of that joke. Even I realize it's not that funny. And here we go, collecting science, delivering it to the science lab. And then, of course, later on we have to clean the experiments and get on with it. And of course, down to the surface. If you're an experienced Kerbal Space Program player, you will of course know that there is something mysterious on Bob. Something, well, green with tentacles and dead eyes, and yeah, well, we're not going to meet it because I did not look up where it was, and I did not want to explore Bob any longer than necessary, because when I recorded this it was like, I think, 2 AM in the morning or something, and I just wanted to get done with it and go to bed. And for some odd reason I started analyzing the experiments instead of just cleaning them out. And then it was time to get down. Yeah, the lander getting out of the cargo bay of the Joolishka and then getting down on the surface. First, we have to get to another orbit And here we go. Getting ready to descend to the surface. This little lander is quite, well, I really like it because it's been on lathe, and all the other moons of Jool, half of it, well, was left on Tylo because I had a separate descent stage to get down on the surface on Tylo, and what's left of it is this, and this is quite astonishingly good for such a small craft. And very steep ascent, but well, I don't really care, because Bob's gravity is so low I could get down with the jetpack if I wanted to, but if you may have watched my previous episodes, I'm not, well, I'm not the best EVA jetpack player, to be honest. So, time to get down onto the chocolate surface of Bob. Well, look at that, what a view! Jool and I think it was Tylo in the background, beautiful. So here we go, let's get down on it to the surface. Getting lower and lower. Of course we have to, well, manage our battery power, because if you remember in one of the previous episodes I lost my solar panels on lathe because I was too stupid to fold them back in when re-entering the atmosphere. But we still have enough batteries left, and it should be enough to get back to the ship even with the landing lights turned on. So Bob is getting out and collecting the usual science, routine maintenance so to speak, and of course we have to plant our flag. There we go! We made it onto Bob. So let's do some more science and get back into the lander, and since I figured, well, I got enough delta V left anyway, why not get to another biome like we did on Val. So we just hit the engines just a little bit, watched Jool rise on the horizon, and adjusted our trajectory a little bit so it gets in line more with the orbit of the mothership, so we don't get off course too far. And then it was time to get back down on the surface and collect some more science. Almost tipping over, but no. Jeb, no, of course, Bob, sorry about that. Bob held it beautifully. And as I mentioned before, doing some more science on the penultimate moon that we're going to visit in this series. And then it's time to plant another flag, or maybe not, no, there are enough flags there. And let's get back up to the ship. Way too much power for this moon. Well, there's never too much. There's never such a thing as too much power. But this lander is powerful enough to do this perfectly. Now we have to just circularize it when we reach apoapse, and then we can make our rendezvous with the mothership. But of course the tedious ascent to apoapse is spent with just looking down on that tryst, and well, it's, I don't know about you guys, but I think Bob is one of the more uglier planetoids in the Kerbin system. The other ones being, of course, Draz. Nobody likes Draz. And, well, Moho, maybe. Well, it's not as ugly as Draz. Nobody likes Draz. I've never even been on Draz, to be honest. Even the name, Draz, it's like, ugh, something that comes out of your mouth that you don't like. Something you have to spit out. Draz. Yeah. So, enough about Draz. Let's get on with meeting up with the motherships, and therefore we have to set up another maneuver node and adjust our orbit so we can rendezvous. Jool coming up again. And there we go. Firing up the engines, almost ready. Here we go. And, well, that was either too much or too little, so I have to do some more adjustments. But of course we have enough delta V left to do that, so it's not a problem at all. We just have to do another pass. If I used something like Tech Life Support or any other plugin that would simulate resources that you need for your Kerbal to survive, then maybe I would have been in trouble. But since that is not the case, and I'm using a stock build here except for Kerbal Engineer and MacJab and the docking port line indicator, it's not a problem at all leaving your Kerbal in orbit or anywhere in space for months and months on end. And there we go, lining up the docking ports and then realizing that my monopropellant was out. So I just deployed my little space tug, put a little spin on it, and then docked with our lander. Almost there. Really have to be gentle on those controls because that tug is so light that the slightest tap on the controls has a huge impact. But we made it, and we are going to get back into the cargo bay of the Joolishka. And then of course it's the usual drill of getting the science out and moving it into the science lab, and then we will make a pilot switch, and the final Kerbal for this series, Jebediah, will be the pilot who will land on the final moon of Jool, which is of course Paul. And here we go, just securing the docking ports so we don't have any fuel transfer from the lander to the spaceship when doing our transfer burns. So let's collect the science that we have gathered, once more squeezing into the cargo bay to get the mystery goo. And then get the other one because we went to a second biome. And then dropping it off, well, Bob seems to be drunk somehow, dropping it off at the science lab, and of course transferring some Kerbals around so we can get Jebediah into our lander. Yeah, once more Bob displaying his drunkenness, but in the end he managed to get into the crew capsule. Some more time in the future. Yep, now he is there. Well, back to rehab, Bob. It's been a while. But that minor lapse of judgment could have had a huge impact on the mission, so shame on you, even though you performed your mission successfully. And now it's time to say goodbye to the chocolate moon of Bob and transfer over to Paul, which of course means a lot of mucking around in the map view and getting maneuver nodes lined up and so on. But first we have to get out of the sphere of influence of Bob, and we can't time accelerate unless we're at 24,500 meters above the surface, and now we're finally out into the orbit. So here we go, setting up the maneuver nodes, setting up an encounter with Paul, fine-tuning the periapps so we have, well, a good approach there, firing our nuclear engines, looking back at where we have already been. It's been quite a ride, it's been quite a wild ride, this whole entire mission, from Kerbin to all of the moons of Jool. But it's been fun, and I enjoyed it very much. But now we're almost finished. The final stage of the voyage is upon us. But this will be met in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.